Hello ukulele friends, welcome back to my home office. Today's video is for Easter Hallelujah. So this is a version of the Leonard Cohen version. However, it's got Easter themed lyrics where we're going to tell the story about the death and resurrection of Jesus. So it's a much cleaner version that we can do at church. Now typically the original version is in 6/8 or 12/8 time, just depending on the version that you look at. We are going to play it in 4/4 time. So it's going to have some rhythms we've seen before. There's little tiny variations between them, but once we're all done, it's going to be a really powerful song. So let's get to work. So most of the chords that we need to play the song, you will find on the third page of your song sheet. And you can either find this in an email that I sent you, or it will be on the church's website along with this video. The one chord I left off was the A minor, but that's because we've played plenty of A minors before. But on this one, I think the one that's going to give us the most trouble is going to be the E minor and the B7. Now we've seen both of these chords before, whether it was for the luau or whether it was for Christmas songs or whatever it was that we were up to. But we have seen these before. Now the first thing we're going to cover is just finding your E minor. Your E minor is a diagonal line, and you're going to start with your pointer finger. He goes on your A string on the 2nd fret. Then you're going to lay your middle finger down on the E string on the 3rd fret, and then you're going to reach over with your ring finger to the C string on the 4th fret, and it sounds like this. So it should sound a little sad. It is a minor chord. So that's your E minor chord. So we have found that. So the first thing we're going to conquer now is your B7, because if you can look at the picture, you'll see it's the exact same shape. We just move it over one string. So everyone's going to come one string closer to you. And it sounds like this. That's your B7. It's a major 7 chord, so it's got that little twang of a 7. And it's happy. So for this one, you don't have any finger on that A string, the one furthest away from you. That's your B7. So there's a point in the song where you need to go from your B7 to your E minor. You just need to pick up your fingers and move them down one string. Keep the shape, just move everybody over one. Now the other time that we play our E minor is when we're coming from a G typically, or from a C. Now for G, you kind of just have to rotate out of it. But if you're going to have to play your C chord like you do for the hallelujahs at the end of each verse, if you use your middle finger to play the C, so you put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, here's your C chord. It gives you one finger already in place just by hopping over one string, and then you add the others down to make your E minor. So if you play C like this, and then just scoot it over, it'll be very easy to find your E minor. So you're going to find that in the hallelujahs at the end of each verse. Now just to remind you, because I didn't put it on the page, your A minor is just one finger on your G string on the 2nd fret. Good old A minor. That's all it is. Nothing hard. So now we're taking a look at the chord sheet, and there's extra notes on here I don't typically put on for you. Here we have a lot of rhythms written on our page, and that's because I wanted to make sure you knew when to play which particular rhythm. Now if you're just glancing very quickly at the first page, you can see that we have a rhythm that is almost identical. However, we changed things on beat 4. So if you look at beat 4 over here, for verse 1 in our introduction, we're just playing a quarter note at the end. But down here, we've got a pair of 8th notes. That is the only difference between the intro in verse 1 and then verse 2 and verse 3. So if you're having a hard time switching between them, try to play the one that you play for the introduction and verse 1 as your primary one. Because no one's going to notice if you miss that up, but if we start adding it too soon, that will be noticeable. So if you're struggling jumping between the two rhythms, focus on that first rhythm that we do for the intro and verse 1, as opposed to the one that we do for verse 2. But let's take a look at verse 4. That's where a lot of the fun stuff happens. So we are talking here lyrically about his death, and that we took the thorny crown from his head, we laid him in the tomb, now that we know that he has died. So it's definitely the downer verse, but because that verse starts to lead towards hope, it's a great one to start quietly and start to build. So you'll see next to verse 4, I wrote quietly. And we are changing our rhythm so that it's not so loud. We are going to use simple half notes. After the half notes, we're going to jump down here where his pierced hands, his feet and side. We're going to build, making it a little bit louder by turning those half notes, playing on every 1 and 3. We're now going to play on every beat as quarter notes. So these are down strums. Once we get to the part where why he died happens to save us from ourselves, you'll see that down here on this D4. We're going to change our rhythm. Now, if you're looking back at verse 2, it's very similar. I, however, changed what happened earlier in the rhythm. If you look at the rhythm for verse 2, we have a pair of eighth notes on verse 2. But when we get over here, we have a quarter note on verse 2. So that changes things just a little bit, but enough that it's not as impactful dynamically as it was with that first rhythm. So if we scroll down, we can take a look at verse 5, and we're going to continue with that same rhythm of the quarter and the quarter, followed by the 3/8 notes on and 4 and, just like we had in verse 4. However, once we finally hit this G4, because this is the redemptive lyric of the song, but as they went to move the stone away, they saw they were not alone. That's where they finally realized he's not there. So it's a really powerful point in the song. So when we get there, we're going to switch back to that original rhythm we had back in verse 2. So eventually that rhythm's coming back. And again, if you're still having trouble with it, you can always go ahead and play that quarter note on beat 4, and no one will probably ever know. So that's the verbal walkthrough of those. Let's go ahead and take a playthrough of some of those. So we're going to start by taking a look at the first rhythm that we play for the introduction and verse 1. So you can see it down there in the lower corner. Right now I'm just going to play all of the rhythm on a G chord. I'm not going to worry about switching chords. So here's my G chord. It's going to be a down, down, up. You're going to miss down, up, down. So it's down, down, up, down. So if you're a counter, that's a 1, 2, and 4. So you're just not playing on beat 3. That's been a common thing we've been doing, is not playing on beat 3. So let's try just playing the introduction with that rhythm. And 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, back to G, 2, 3, 4, E minor, 2, 3, 4. So that's the rhythm that you're going to use for the introduction and verse 1. Now we are going to simply change that a little bit as we go to verse number 2. So you'll see verse number 2 is now down at the bottom. So all we're doing is changing what happens on beat 4. Now remember, in the first rhythm it was a quarter note, now we're just making it a pair of eighth notes. So again, I'm just going to hang out on a G so I can play that rhythm for you. It sounds like this. So it's same thing, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. If you're a counter, that's a 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and. So let's see if we can play the first 2 lines of verse 2 using this rhythm. Ready? And 1, 2, ready, go. G, 2, 3, 4, E minor, 2, 3, 4, G, E. So remember, we're going to use this rhythm for verse 2, verse 3, and you're going to see it come back again later in verse number 5. Now, if you've been scanning through, you see there's a couple places where there's 2 count chords, and we've run into this problem in other songs. So now it's time to talk about that. So continuing to look at the rhythm for verse 2, verse 3, and that ending part of verse 5. Whenever you get to the sections where you have a reed which held his final sip, we've got a G for 4, which is fine. We play the complete rhythm. However, we've got a C for 2 and a D for 2. That problem is we're not playing on beat 3, so that splits the rhythm in half, but there's nothing there right at the halfway point. So I'm going to start on my G for 4, then my C for 2, my D for 2. So that's halfway through. That is the 4th line of lyric. And what you're going to do is this. So here's your G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, A minor. So when you're hitting the second chord that involves the 2, it's not going to be on beat. It's going to be right after that rest on the and of 3. So let's do that again. If you'd like to play along with me, again, we're on the G, followed by the C for 2, then the D for 2. Here we go. Let's try it. And 1, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. E minor, 2, 3, 4. C, 2, 3, 4. There you go. So that is how it's going to happen. Now, when that happens earlier in verse 1, it fits exactly the same way. So here's verse 1 again with that rhythm. But just remember, the only thing that changed was beat 4, which doesn't change anything else. So if you were playing the rhythm from verse 1, and you're looking at the exact same place, the G for 4, the C for 2, the D for 2, it sounds like this. G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to change the chord during the rest. That's probably the easiest way to think of it. So let's scroll ourselves on down and take a look at what's going on in verse 4. So as I said in just my initial explanation, we're gonna bring things down a little bit quieter, and we're gonna do that rhythmically. But you should also try to strum a little quieter. Like, even though my pick is really loud, I can still be very gentle with it to make it quieter. So as we're building this verse, that's what you want to do. You want to start quieter and then get louder as you go. And you can do that strumming and rhythmically. So the first thing we're going to do in verse 4 is start with half notes. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3. We continue with these half notes. 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, D. Now we're going to switch to quarter notes and G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, D, 2, E minor, 2, 3, 4, C. We're going to switch on this D. We're changing to the rhythm at the bottom. 1, 2, and 4, and 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 C, 2, back to E, back to C, now a G, G, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is going to help us build it dynamically, but if we can do it with our strum as well, it'll make a really nice point, and you could be very cliche and say we can make a crescendo in our music and lyrics, and that would be appropriate because that's exactly what we're doing. As we go and we finish out things in verse 5. Now remember, you're going to continue with that same rhythm that we just finished out with verse 4. But we're going to switch on that G4, but as they went to move the stone, we're going to switch back to that rhythm that we had earlier on. So let's do verse 5 together. And 1, 2, ready, go. G, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, D, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, D, 2. We're going to switch. Then C, discovered that we're going to slow down, G, so yes, this video is a little bit longer than some of my other ones, but one, it's a very long song. And because of all the rhythmic changes, it can be a little daunting. So make sure that you are just focusing on getting the right chords in all the right places. And if we can do that, it's going to be a really powerful song and probably one of the best ones that we've done. So now it's time to do a run through. Now, I have not practiced my singing of this nearly enough, and I will get on that. So my apologies if I get the wrong words or if I get the wrong melody, but my goal is to play it correctly so you at least have something to work with. So we're going to start at the beginning. I'll see you at the end. Here's your G chord, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Same rhythm. A soldier who had used his sword to pierce the body of the Lord said, truly this was Jesus Christ, our Savior. He looked with fear upon his sword, then turned to face his Christ and Lord, and fell to his then laid him down to rest inside the tomb. His pierced hands, his feet inside, now in our hearts he died to save us from ourselves. So hallelujah, hallelujah. As you can tell, I still need to practice singing this one. A couple of things fall a little bit differently. But it's a really neat song. So one, thank you all for recommending it enough times that I had to find a good version we could do. And I hope that you like playing this one. It's fun. The changes are a little bit challenging, but it's a good work for it kind of song. So you guys know how to find me if you have any questions or if you need any help. So good luck practicing your song, and I hope to see you at rehearsal real soon.